simple choice. Now, here's your host, Jane Velez-Mitchell.
Whoa! Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous day. Are we hitting the tipping point today? I would say quite possibly yes, because last night something extraordinary happened. Something truly extraordinary happened. Joaquin Phoenix, who is a vegan and an animal rights activist, who goes to pig vigils in downtown Los Angeles, who is absolutely amazing. Won Best Actor at the Golden Globes that was 100% plant-based. And he went up, and what he said immediately was, thank you, Hollywood Foreign Press, for acknowledging animal agriculture's contribution role in climate change, and congratulated the Golden Globes for having an entirely vegan meal. Plant-based is what he said, because people for some reason can accept that easier. And so that is a game changer. Those of us who have been trying to tell the world about the importance of switching to a plant-based diet to save our planet, to save life on this planet, were in ecstasy because he got a round of applause, and because now the world is getting that information. So today we have an amazing guest, and a guest in Portland, Brittany Michelson. You've written a book, Voices for Animal Liberation. It's coming out. It's your first book. Tell us how you deal with major events like this, when a game-changing moment occurs, as occurred at the Golden Globes with that acceptance speech. Joaquin Phoenix knocked it out of the park, took the moment of opportunity to speak the truth to the world, and he wasn't booed, the world applauded. Take it away.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, it was a phenomenal moment to hear Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech. I think it blew all of us away because he has such a huge platform, and to put this out to the world, out to the celebrity world, and out all over the media is huge for our movement. So we're all celebrating the fact that he made this announcement that there is a direct correlation between the animal agriculture industry and climate change. So my book, Voices for Animal Liberation, is an anthology for the animal rights movement. And, you know, talking about celebrities, we think about art and how important art is in our movement. In the animal rights movement, we need a variety of modes in which we can get our message out. So films, visual art, and writing. And so I created this book because I believe in the power of writing, and I want the voices of a variety of animal rights activists to be heard in print, to be seen and to be taken seriously. So the book will be released on March 3rd. It's available for pre-order now. And luckily I got a mainstream publisher to take this on, which is great because hopefully the exposure will be really good. It's Skyhorse Publishing, and their distribution is through Simon & Schuster. So I'm really hoping that this will, you know, go far and will really help change hearts and minds for the animals, and get people really thinking about the issues that our planet is facing.
Danny Rukin in Portland, you are a contributor to the book. Many incredible activists like Jeep Bauer, the founder of Farm Sanctuary, Ingrid Newkirk, president of PETA, Sean Munson, the amazing director of Earthlings, and others have contributed to the book. First, I got to get your reaction to Joaquin Phoenix and his speech, because to me, it was a moment that marks a shift, a tipping point of sorts within itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just as elated as every other animal rights, ethical vegan animal rights activists, ethical vegan around the world right now. And I echo what Brittany says. For somebody like that to use their platform for the animals and for the environment and for regarding the connection between animal agriculture and the climate is huge. And for him to use it at that moment when it wasn't just like some random moment. This was him winning the Oscar for the Golden Globes for the award for best actor. Huge. And I also want to add what Brittany's saying. This is using art for any social justice movement. When we look back historically, and Brittany and I were talking about this, and Jane, you've mentioned this before, music, art, writing, all of these ways, the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War and Joan Baez and Pete Seeger and all the folk, music is a big part of it too. So this is a huge beginning.
It really is. And what I see happening is all those Americans who love their dogs, and then they look over and they see what's happening in the Amazon, and they see what's happening in Australia right now. And I love what Joaquin Phoenix also said about that. Like, stop with the thoughts and prayers. Our actions, our choices as consumers is what is causing this horror show that is only going to get worse. And got to plug my documentary, Countdown to Year Zero, on Amazon Prime, which talks about precisely this, that animal agriculture is destroying the planet. Now, we know that there is a huge institutional resistance to looking at this issue. Even progressives, even liberals, like the Rachel Maddows of the world, who I otherwise admire, don't want to focus on animal agriculture's role. And they only want to pretty much talk about fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. Do you address climate change in your book, Brittany? And if so, how?
Certain pieces in the book do mention environmental aspects. Climate change does come up, not a lot, because the focus is really on different forms of activism, different perspectives on animal rights activism, different experiences, how animal rights activism has influenced the contributors, their personal journeys, things like that. So climate change is not really a focus, but of course it is one component of the whole picture of the animal rights movement. And so, yes, aspects like health, the health benefits of a plant-based diet, and environmental aspects such as the fact that animal agriculture is the leading cause of deforestation, and those kinds of things are touched on.
Now, Danny, you talk about your journey in the book as a gay activist to a gay animal activist. Give us a 30-second on that. Like, what is your journey? Because I think this is so fascinating, and you can read about it in this book, Voices for Animal Liberation. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the title of my piece is called How I Made the Connection, Gay Rights, Feminism, and Animal Liberation. And I also want to echo what Brittany is saying and what you're also saying, Jane. The countdown to year zero, it opens, with the flames of what's happening with the wildfires. So it's all connected. And I think most, if not all of us in the anthology, probably we do understand the connection, and we very deeply are affected by it. And, animals are the environment. We are animals. We are the environment. There's no difference. We are nature. We are the planet. It's all one. So when people start making the connection that that when your actions cause harm to anything that is more vulnerable to you, whether it's an animal or a child or someone of a different culture or country or color or the planet, nature, when anything's more vulnerable, we have to be more conscious about our actions. So I also want to add, I am from Portland, but I'm not in Portland. I wish this is where I lived, but I'm in Washington State, out near Mount Adams on a little weekend getaway. So, and I want to add that for animal rights activists, most of us have a hard time taking care of ourselves because we are just constant 24/7. And I can't say enough about getting away for 2 days.
Well, you look like something out of a James Bond movie, when James Bond goes into hiding. That's what it looks like. Tell me though about how you went from being a gay activist to a gay animal rights activist.
Yeah. So years ago, I was president of the Alliance for Gay and Lesbian Awareness in college in San Francisco. And, we're here, we're queer, get used to it and the whole thing. Out loud and proud, and that was decades ago. If you had told me even 4 years ago, let alone decades ago when I was, out loud and proud, I would never have known that I was going to have a second coming out, because all of the people, all of my friends who are social justice warriors and environmentalists and feminists and LGBTQ activists and environmentalists and yoga and spiritual, when I came out as an ethical vegan, the hardest thing, besides not knowing how to eat, but that was nothing. I said, when I learned the truth about but not just animal agriculture, about what we were doing to animals, the horrible truth, I said, I'll eat cardboard before I eat another animal. So, and actually the journey to figure out how to eat and where to go and what to do was a beautiful and still is process. I encourage people, if you're not yet vegan, to embrace the process, because I really did. I'm so glad that I looked at it as an adventurous journey, and it was very scary because I did lose a lot of friends who are feminists. Yeah. We can go into that later, but yes, that is a part of it.
Well, that was interesting. You lost a lot of friends who were focused on their movement, but didn't want to extend that circle of compassion to other beings. And, and you talk about that in the book, Voices for Animal Liberation. And I know, being your friend, how hard that was for you and how you cried. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's really fascinating part of the book.
Yeah, I think the most, it's fine with me that people who don't know me don't want to hear the message. It's just like, you're lost, buddy. You're going to be last on board, those kinds of things. And I have a lot of compassion. Of course, I get outraged. And by the way, when I first went vegan, it was like, take me to my people. Because for me, it wasn't going vegan. It was actually Brittany and I had met through our elephant rights activism. And through that, I started to realize we're not just doing this to elephants, which are a major part of the environment. What we're doing to elephants, they are critical to our planet, as we know many animals are, and they create waterways. They have a lot of impact. So it's all connected. And I just wish that more people would see. So Brittany and I were connecting around that. So I realized, wait, I can't be a voice how can I be a voice for elephants when I'm, because I was reading and looking on
because
Facebook.
I'm what?
Because I'm in the role of the oppressor. I'm actually doing the very thing that I'm angry at people doing to elephants. I'm responsible by eating animals. I'm responsible for creating cruelty and suffering. And so for me, it was like, take me to my people. And I found the Animal Rights National Conference, where I actually met you, Jane. I literally signed up as if it were 40 some years ago, and I was signing up for a gay and lesbian conference. It was the same thing. I want my tribe, because I do not feel seen, understood. Nobody's listening, including my feminist friends and my social justice friends. They're not listening. They don't want to hear.
Ask you, weigh in on that, Brittany.
Yeah. So, when Danny and I met, I was already vegan at the time, and she wasn't, but we connected on in elephant activism for a certain elephant that has been suffering immensely at a zoo in Pakistan named Kavan. So we connected on the Free Kavan campaign. So anyway, when I decided to start this book, I started it in June 2018. This was a few years after Danny and I met. I think we met in like the summer of 2015. Anyway, I was thinking of people to be contributors, and I really wanted to have a mix of voices and perspectives, and different types of activism represented as well. And anyway, I know Danny's story was very powerful, the way that she did make the connection from elephants to all animals. And it was such a pleasure to witness her journey, her process, because I was already vegan, and I was, seeing the way the dots were connecting for her. And that is what I wish for everybody. I wish the dots would just connect for everybody, because, we all, for the most part, love dogs and cats and animals that are considered companion animals, but we need to extend that compassion and that justice to all animals. So this book, I'm really excited about it. I have 27 contributors. What I love about it is that it's a mix of very established voices in the animal rights movement and newer voices. I didn't want it to just be the leading voices. I really wanted there to be a balance. And so that is, what my goal was to have a mix of highly established voices and newer voices. And
give us a sense of some of the people who are in the book. We know
Sure.
Jean Bauer, Farm Sanctuary. Ingrid Newkirk writes the intro. We've got Danny Rukin, who talks about her journey from being a gay activist to a gay animal activist, which is quite a read. Who else?
So Ingrid Newkirk wrote the foreword of the book, which was a huge honor. And I've got Anita Kreintz, founder of the Save Movement, Sean Monson, filmmaker, of course, of Earthlings and Unity. I have Jill Robinson, the founder of Animals Asia, incredible woman who's been working for years to stop bear bile farming in China and Vietnam. I have Karen Davis, founder of United Poultry Concerns, longtime activist. I have some newer voices are Jasmine Afshar in Phoenix and Zafir Molina here in Los Angeles. I've got the only poem in the book is by Sean Hill, who's a local, performance-based poet. He did a poem at the end called "Nonstop Loving: An Ode to Activists." And otherwise, it's a variety of personal essays. Oh, and one of my biggest heroes, Lek of Save Elephant Foundation in Thailand. The woman has done incredible, she's Thai and she's done incredible work for elephants. She runs the Sanctuary Elephant Nature Park. She's one of my contributors.
Let me jump in for a second, because we have a caller. Basically, read this book, you'll understand the entire spectrum of the animal rights movement, which is, mark my words, going to be the largest, the most important social justice movement of the 21st century, because our survival as humans depends on us stopping to kill animals. Hannah from Florida, thanks for your patience. What's your question or thought, Hannah? Oh, Hannah. Okay, well, we're not hearing
Well, while
Hannah.
we're waiting, can I say something?
Yes, sure.
Well, Brittany, I did not know that Jill Robinson is one of the contributors, and that's incredible for me, because before I was vegan, so it was the fall of 2015 that I was having my awakening, which is what it was. I had seen on an animal law conference video, I think it was their presentation of the bear bile farming. I think it was in Vietnam. I don't want to name any country because it's incredible what's happening with it. But anyways, when I saw the bear bile, what she was doing in Asia, I could not believe that we were actually capable of that much evil, and that you see the worst of humanity, and then what she's doing, the best of humanity. It was like, which side am I on?
I agree with you. When I saw the bear bile farms where they keep these bears immobilized and take their bile out for some crazy superstition, I said, I'm embarrassed to be a member of the human race. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Hannah from Florida is back. Okay, Hannah, what's your question or thought, my dear? Oh, Lordy. Hannah. Okay. I don't know whether we're having trouble with the phones, but
I can say something else if we're waiting.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, take your time.
No? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to skip those phone calls then. All right. So yes, I would like to hear what you have to say.
It's what you were asking me about earlier, Jane, that I think what was heartbreaking for me, and it's a part of my story, is that I thought, so as I had my awakening of what we were doing and the connection between what we do to animals and feminism and oppression, and that oppression is oppression and cruelty is cruelty and inhumanity is human, regardless of the victim. I thought that naively, once I shared my awakening and my story with my feminist and social justice friends, that they would surely just want to know more and learn more and be on board. And when they weren't, that was a turning point for me of a lot of things. It's very disheartening.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Hannah or Shannon? Okay, Shannon.
It's Shannon. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to touch on everything that you guys are saying. It's so exciting. I love all of you, and I'm so excited for Brittany's book to come out. So many amazing human beings that are doing so much to help innocent animals. And wow, Joaquin's speech, how incredible. And the fact that the Golden Globes had all plant-based food is just like, that was such exciting news a few days ago when I heard it. And oh my goodness, so many awesome things happening. And Danny's absolutely right. Everything is connected. And if everybody could see that and get active, then we could just change the world so much quicker.
You are one of the most amazing activists, Shannon, who is Vegan Evan's mom, and she and her son go around the country with Veg Ian and his mom, and they spread the word. They literally just travel around the country and the world, spreading the message that you don't have to kill to survive, that in fact, it's killing us. So we've got another caller. Paige, your question or call, Paige.
Hi, ladies. I just want to congratulate you. Hi. I want to congratulate you, Brittany, on a job well done. I can't wait to read your book, pre-ordered, and very excited. I want to ask you, Brittany, for the other people out there that might be putting something down, a pen to paper, what was your inspiration? Like, what had you really just go for it?
So it was right after the Animal Liberation Conference of 2018. And I was so up in Berkeley, I was so inspired. And I'm not exactly sure what struck the idea, but I started thinking, because I'm a teacher and also a writer. This is my first book, but previously I had written short pieces. I have written short pieces. I still am, and those have been published on literary sites and online journals, some of which are awareness-raising pieces about animal issues. So I started thinking, how great would it be to have an anthology of voices by animal rights activists? And so I wrote a book proposal. I learned how to write a book proposal, which was a lot of work. It involves multiple components. And I decided just to formulate, I structured the whole project. I sent the proposal out to publishers, 15 publishers, and it got accepted. It was quite a process. I provided feedback for my contributors to help shape their pieces so that they could, some of them needed to revise. Some of the pieces needed more revision than others. So I provided my feedback, and then I edited all of the pieces before I sent it off to the publisher. So yeah, it started June 2018, and here we are, and it'll be released in March 2020.
Whoa, how fantastic. Okay, thank you,
Brittany,
Paige.
I could not have written my piece without you. So
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that. And I also want to say to what Brittany's saying, she is an example. Now she's a writer and she has a gift and she's using her gift, but she had never, she didn't know how to write a book proposal. And what I want to say to we all have a story to tell. Every single one of us who have gone vegan and are ethical vegans and have become animal rights activists, we all, like Shannon, who was on earlier, who is a very amazing activist, and then of course her son, Vegan Evan. I know Shannon's story. She used to be the manager of a fish restaurant and training people. I hope that's not a secret, but it's just we all were there once, so we all understand. But I just want to say we all have a story, so don't ever underestimate your gifts, and use those gifts and use what you're good at and what you're passionate about in order to to be a voice for the animals, because Brittany certainly didn't say, I'm going to go vegan and become an animal rights activist and then write a book about it, right?
Yeah, now I want to say this, and by the way, if you see me looking down, it's because I'm sharing this out. So hit share. Hit share when you're watching on Facebook. That's a way to get a whole other audience. Thank you for that. We have Bill Grant who says, America is America because of some meat. I'm getting hungry. So Bill, first of all, I want to thank you for joining us and listening, because the first step in any process is to listen. And I understand the imagery of the Wild West and the cowboys and the heroes, but the truth is that life is about change. The only constant in life is change. And we've gotten to a point with our environment, because we are only 7.7 billion humans, and we're killing between 70 and 90 billion land animals, not including fish, that the carnage from that, the inefficiency of those animals who, I say who, eat 40 times at least what they produce as food, is contributing to world hunger. And it's destroying the forest, because forests have to be cut down to grow food to feed all those animals. So what was perhaps manageable back in the Middle Ages or during the Renaissance, or even during the early parts of the Industrial Revolution, it's no longer sustainable. We have come to a turning point, and either we hit the tipping point and start incorporating more fruits and vegetables, nuts and grains into our diet, or we are going to accelerate climate change to the point where literally it's going to be too hot for human life and certainly other life to survive.
And can I say something to Bill?
Well, we're gonna do a quick break. We've got to go to a break, but I want to hear you right on the other side. However, we're staying live on Facebook, so thank you, Voice America. We've got Andrew from Voice America helping us today, and I always say thank you to our executive producer, Tacey Trump. Let's take a quick break on Voice America. We'll stay live on Facebook, and we'll be back in a second. You can play the music, Andrew.
All clear.
Thank you. Yeah, if you play the music coming back, then we'll be able to get ready in here. Thank you. Well, what were you going to say to, I believe it's Bill Grant. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, like you said, Jane, you acknowledge that he's on here, you know, and also Bill, you know, I used to be steaks and chops, and I used to make fun of vegans. So, you know, I'm here to say, and there's many like me, that, you know, we do evolve and change, and to just be open, you know, contempt prior to investigation doesn't allow us to grow and evolve. And when we learn more, you know, when you know better, you do better. I didn't know. And, you know, I had a clue that, you know, that what we did to animals in order to eat them was not a pretty picture, but I didn't want to know more. But the truth is that you can be one way before, and you can open your heart and mind and consider learning more about something and then making an informed decision.
Absolutely. Look, a lot of the people who've become vegan were cattle ranchers. I went vegan because a fourth generation cattle rancher who became very sick from all the chemicals that they were using on these animals.
Got about 30 seconds.
Sure, he went vegan, and I interviewed him, and he was the one who turned me vegan. Howard Lyman, fourth generation cattle rancher, turned vegan. So, you know, they're being factory farmed too. We're going to come back to Voice America Radio and continue this conversation. Right now, we're with Brittany Michelson, who's just put out a new book called
The Voice America Influencers Channel.
You are listening to Jane Unchained. To reach the show today, call in to 1-866-472-5795. That's 1-866-472-5795. You may also send an email in to janeunchainednews@gmail.com. Now back to the show.
All right, we're here with Brittany Michelson and our mascot, Little Rico, our rescue from Puerto Rico, as well as Danny Rukin. Brittany, where can we get your book, Voices for Animal Liberation?
So it's available for pre-order right now. The release date is March 3rd. It is on the Skyhorse Publishing website, which is my publisher. It's available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. It's on the Simon & Schuster website, because the distribution from my publisher is handled by Simon & Schuster. It's also available on IndieBound, Books A Million, and Powell's bookstore online. Those are the places so far where it's available.
So Bill Grant, who's continuing to dialogue with us, and we appreciate that, Bill, says climate change is a huge hoax. Spring, summer, winter, and fall have came every year since the beginning of time, and it won't change till the end of this world. Well, let me just say this. I don't think there's any disputing the video that the Amazon is on fire. We've seen the video, and we know it's been acknowledged that because Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, has sided with animal agriculture, he's basically giving them free range to tear down the forest and burn down the forest for cattle grazing. Okay.
Follow the money.
Yes. And then in Australia, we see what's happening. The video is the video. It's not being reconstructed. There's no, it's just video of areas the size of Manhattan on fire. 500 million animals who are just like our dogs and cats have been killed. The video of the kangaroos and the koalas fleeing is gut-wrenching. So whether you call it climate change or just, a bleep storm, something very, very dangerous and horrible is happening to our environment. I've seen it with my own eyes. I was in Malibu when the fires happened there, and we almost got enveloped in them. And I said to my friend Simone Reyes, I'm making an executive decision because I'm behind the wheel. We're turning around now. And if we hadn't done that, I don't know whether we would have survived. I was going to go to a Thanksgiving party at a friend's house. They had to change the location because every house on his block had been burned down except his. So when we only look at it when it's hitting us, that's when it's too late. This moment that Joaquin Phoenix took when the world's attention was on him, and courageously, because it is courage. There's agents, there's studios, follow the money. It's always courageous to speak truth to power. And he said, thank you for acknowledging animal agriculture's contribution to climate change and making this plant-based. It was a bold move. When he did that, that was, I think, a game changer. And I think we're seeing a lot of game changers. Brittany, you've written this incredible anthology with your contributors, Voices for Animal Liberation. What do you see happening in 2020?
I really feel like we're getting super close to the tipping point. And I feel that, like I said earlier, the more mediums, the more outlets that we have for this movement, the better. And so that was also part of my vision in creating this book, was to get the voices for animal liberation out there in mainstream literature, get it out there for people to read. We need the music, arts, film, all of it. And all of these things are only going to just continue to bolster our movement. I am really excited that a mainstream publisher decided to take this on. This is a publisher that has like 18 imprints, I think, under them. So it's not just like a little animal rights oriented publisher, which I'm really excited because I'm hoping that there'll be great exposure in the mainstream, that the book will help change hearts and minds for the animals and the planet. I also believe that it will encourage vegans who are not active to become activists, to take action, realizing the importance of taking action for animals versus being passive vegans. We don't have time to waste. We need everybody on the ground doing whatever they can to be voices for the animals, and thereby being voices for the planet and our own human health. And so this project, it was a tremendous amount of work to bring it all together, working with 27 contributors. I wrote the introduction and the closing. I structured it all. There's six different sections. And I also wrote a personal essay that's in the book as well, and just helped shape the pieces and then edited them. And I'm super grateful to my contributors for their openness, their receptiveness to my feedback, and their receptiveness to my editing. And I just feel like, we're all a big team, and I'm thrilled that this can even be out in the world.
Tell me your story, because you said you also wrote your story. I want to hear your story because you are one of the most vocal, consistent activists. I see activists sort of sometimes come and go. They're very passionate for a couple of months or a year, and then something comes up, they meet a new person in their life, or they get a high-powered job or whatever. I'm not casting blame, or, there's good reasons for people sometimes to step back and do what they've got to do to live their life. As Sigmund Freud said, it's important to have compassion for others, but also consideration for oneself. We all have to do what we have to do, and self-care is important. However, you are relentless. Tell us your story.
Okay, well, I went vegan because at the time I was vegetarian. I had been vegetarian for a long time. I was those like vegetarians who thought like, oh, I'm not eating animals, and I just felt that not eating meat was enough. I didn't know about the horrors behind the dairy and egg industries. And at the time, I had a boyfriend who was, he was plant-based for health. He was a real health guy. And I mean, he cared about animals as well, but his main thing was plant-based for health. So he started telling me about the negative effects of dairy on health. He said that dairy causes inflammation, it's acidic, and he just said dairy is not healthy. He didn't tell me about what happens to the cows in the dairy industry. He just was telling me about the health stuff. So I looked into that online. I wanted to do some research, and I found validation for what he was saying, that dairy is indeed not healthy, and consequently came across the awful behind the scenes of the dairy industry. And I was shocked. I mean, I literally was like, I couldn't believe that they take the babies away from their mothers. They confine them in hutches. The male calves are killed for veal and, at a few months of age. And then the female dairy cows, when they can no longer produce enough milk, are sent to slaughter. So I didn't realize that the dairy and meat industries were directly connected. So I went vegan, and very shortly after, I went to a protest for animals. And I went to the protest, and I think it was a DXE and Los Angeles for Animals co-host. I don't remember, but it was a protest. We went into grocery store, and my eyes were open, and I became an activist.
Wow. I call you Brittany Megaphone Michelson. Now, I think we have another caller. Pray. Michael from Los Angeles, your question or thought?
Hey, thank you so much for taking my call. You guys all inspire me. I'm really enjoying the show today. And Brittany, I'm really looking forward to your book. I can't wait to read it when it comes out in 2 months. Basically, my question is this. We all know there are a lot of vegans. When I go to a veg fest, there are so many people. And when I go to a event, a protest, or a vigil or whatever, there are not that many people there. And my question to you, Brittany, is actually, since you're such an amazing activist, what do you think is the key to getting more vegans to become active? And Danny and Jane, you can chime in too if you want to, but I think that would really go a long way in advancing our movement and getting more attention. We get very little media attention because our numbers are so small.
Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. I mean, there's definitely a huge turnout at vegan events like, food fests, veg fest, those kinds of things. I think that, just encouraging and inspiring people through, leading by example, but also the urgency of the matter. I mean, one purpose of this book is to hopefully encourage vegans who are passive to take action. I mean, I took action shortly after becoming vegan, I just, I took me some time to really get into like, different events, but I at least attended an animal rights protest shortly after just to open my eyes to it, because I realized like, we can't just be quiet about this. Once your eyes are opened, for me anyway, I had to take action. So I guess, that's an interesting question. How can we really get more people on board? And I guess, leading by example, and also just the more social media, videos and things that we put out there, we show people that you can be anybody who, any vegan, anybody who really cares to make a difference can take that next step and go from just being like a personal vegan in your own life and just, spreading the word. And there's something for everybody. There's, if you don't feel comfortable behind a megaphone, like that's something that I enjoy doing, is speaking truth to power behind the megaphone. You can just hold a sign. You can just be there in the presence of other activists. So I'm still actually trying to figure that out, Michael. Maybe Danny or Jane has something else to add to that.
Well, one of the reasons I started Jane Unchained was because the mainstream media, which I was in for 40 years, doesn't cover this. It took Joaquin Phoenix getting up there at the Golden Globes to blurt out the truth. Animal agriculture is destroying our planet. And why does mainstream media not want to talk about it? I think we can have Michael listen, but remove him from the actual hold because it's got feedback. So why is it that even progressive news media like MSNBC pretty much has their blinders on when it comes to animal agriculture and doesn't want to talk about it? Look at the advertisers. Pharmaceutical industry would collapse if people began eating plant-based and got healthy. No need for those, less need. There are some people with genetically predisposed to high cholesterol, but much less need for the cholesterol lowering drugs, the erectile dysfunction drugs, and a lot of the other pills and potions that they're selling. And of course, the fast food industry. So we have to speak the truth when we get the chance. And the clock is ticking, as I mentioned in my documentary, which is available for free on Amazon Prime for Amazon Prime members, 99 cents for anyone else. And it's won awards. Countdown to year zero.
It's incredible.
Explains.
It should be in schools.
We're not going to have any wild animals left, except maybe squirrels, in 7 years at the rate we're killing them. And once those wild animals go, and then the insect, the bee population, we won't be able to pollinate the way we need to, and we're going to have an ecological collapse. So everybody needs to get on their cell phones. Okay, this is the greatest tool you have. Sure, writing a book is extraordinary, and I urge everyone, buy Voices for Animal Liberation. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it at Skyhorse Publishing. And then also use your phone every time you eat a vegan meal. Take a photo of it, post it on Instagram. If you have a great vegan recipe, go live on Facebook, show people, and then you can repost it on IGTV. There's other platforms. Rumble is a great new platform. So this will connect you to more people than you could speak to in a month, no matter what you're doing. Okay. And so it's super important that we all get active. And what I find so ironic, Danny Rukin, is that, we're trying to save people. People that, well, you care about animals. What about people? People are dying because of animal agriculture. Children are dying of starvation because of animal agriculture, because it's so inefficient, because it takes 8 to 25 pounds of grain to make 1 pound of beef. We could feed that grain directly to kids. And so, what would you say to Michael's question about how we get more people involved?
Yeah, I have a lot to say. So also in line with what Brittany's saying, there's no action too small. And if being behind a megaphone or doing a speak out is not for you, there's just so many ways to be a voice for the animals. And a lot of people will see those of us who are really active and out there and think, oh, I could never do that. But you'd be surprised at what you can do when you really connect with, you know, what your values are and what you believe in. And I also want to say to people, those of us who are active animal rights activists, how I see it is, if it were me or my loved ones in that situation, I would be doing the same thing. Why do people have to wait until it's somebody close to them or them to do the right thing? And I say, and also those of us who are active, I think we complain and blame and are in despair less because we're actually doing something about it. So when you see all the horrible things going on, get out there and get active, speak truth to power, be out, be loud, be proud. And until their voices are heard, we will not be quiet, because if it were you, just use your empathy, compassion in action, love in action. If it were you, what would you want us to do? And then go do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural to feel despair. It's very depressing, the state of the world, the planet, what's happening to the animals. But like Danny said, if you're taking action, you're playing a direct role in doing something to try to reduce the situation. And
Suffering.
That is really the mark of an activist. I mean, once you have that fire inside you, you can't stop. I mean, maybe some people, they grow out of it, or they get worn out. Of course, getting burnt out is one thing, and self-care is very important. But when you have that fire of activism within you, it's like, I mean, it's changed my whole life. It's the best thing I ever did was go vegan and become an activist.
I agree with you 100%. And, when people go vegan first, sometimes they're like, I feel all alone. The editor of my documentary, Countdown to Year Zero, Jeff Adams, lives in North Carolina. And we ended up doing this project because he reached out to me and said, I'm in North Carolina. I don't know a lot of other vegans. I feel alone. And I said, I'll put you to work. And so, there are so many vegans out there who are sort of lurking in the shadows, who are plant-based, who are getting it. And yet they almost feel embarrassed to come out and say, because their neighbors and their friends are not on board yet. And we should never apologize or feel embarrassed for being right. We are right. We are morally right. And we are in every other way right, because this is the biggest danger. So I feel, frankly, that the greatest gift I've ever gotten is to be able to be involved in this movement. When you have a why, you can endure anyhow, like we all have a why for living. And we know, I think I speak for all of us, every morning when we wake up, we have a vision, we have a mission, we have a goal, and we're just all about accomplishing it. And it's really a great feeling. Like, I think that I would be far more despondent if I didn't have a goal. And I always quote Ingrid Newkirk, who's written the foreword to your book, who's one of my heroes. And she says, being sad doesn't help the animals. Being sad doesn't help the planet. So being sad uses up a lot and
I also want to add
permission to be happy as long as I do something.
As long as we're doing something.
Yeah.
And I want to say goal, yes, but also we have purpose. We have a purpose. And I want to also say that that a lot of people will say, how can you be focusing on animals when we have so much human suffering going on? And I knew that if this current, administration got in, that the awareness of animal rights.
A lot of people will say, how can you be focusing on animals when we have so much human suffering going on?
Yeah,
and I knew that if this current, administration got in, that the awareness of animals. A lot of people will say, how can you be focusing on animals?
Okay, we had a little bit of an issue there.
Okay, it's back. We're back.
It's back.
But I just want to address that people, a lot of people think that we're focusing on animals when we should be focusing on human suffering. And a few things we can say to that is, number one, it's not one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game. Cruelty is cruelty, suffering is suffering, oppression is oppression, violence is violence. If we're allowing ourselves and each other to commit violence against animal, peace begins on our plate. You can also be a voice for the homeless, for immigrants, for everything and anything, for people of color, for LGBTQ, for everything and anything that you believe in, and also stop eating animals and recognize that speciesism is the same. It comes from the same oppression and mindset that racism and heterosexism and sexism do.
Yeah, exactly. And actually the very opening of my book, the introduction that I wrote, starts with that. It starts with questions that I've been asked, that we as animal rights activists have been asked, why fight for animals when there are so many human issues in the world? Those questions that we get. And then right from the get-go in the book, I draw the connection. I make the connection that all forms of oppression are connected. Human and non-human animal oppression is connected. Animal rights is human rights. I always say that. Animal rights is human rights. And that's one thing I love about the book, is that the connections between oppressions and intersectionality and these things are explored in the book. And people's activists' journeys of what they've overcome, the personal challenges that they've faced, either that led them to activism or challenges they faced within activism, are explored, as well as the lessons they've learned, the meaning of activism in their lives. This is described in the book's description. If you go to one of the sites where it's being sold, you can read the description of the book.
And the book is Voices for Animal Liberation. And it's an incredible book. I really urge you to read it, and you will get a sense of the entire animal rights movement, which is becoming the social justice movement of the 21st century. Why? Because when the animals die, we die. We are killing so many animals that within 4 to 12 hours, we kill more animals on this planet than all the humans who have died in all the wars in the history of humankind. So that gives you a sense of the violence and the carnage. And, there's a toll, there's a price that's paid for that violence. There is another way. And I believe that climate crisis will bring us all together. And we will stop focusing on what we look like, what the shade of our skin color is, what our hair is like, and what religion we are, and where we came from, or even what species we are, and start realizing we're all on the Titanic, and the only way off is to go plant-based, and then we will right the ship. So I want to thank Brittany Michelson and Danny Rukin. The book is Voices for Animal Liberation. Please order it. And it will also, as vegan activists, give you all the information you need to make the kind of arguments. You know how sometimes people will say something and you go, oh, I wish I had a better answer. This has all the answers.
Yeah.
So you read this book, you'll know every single answer, no matter what people say to you. And I'm going to read it for that, so that I always have an answer, because afterwards I get really upset if I don't have a good answer. And I start talking to myself.
Thank you, Jane. You did one of the endorsements for the book.
Okay.
And so that is on the sites where the book is being sold, and a quote by you on the back of the book as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Having us on the show. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know how hard it is to write a book. I've written 4 of them, and it ain't easy. So Voices for Animal Liberation. Get it? I'm going to order it as soon as we get off. I can't wait to sit down and read it. And Danny Rukin, I love you. Brittany Michelson, I love you. You are fantastic people. Let's save the world. We're going to hit the tipping point. Plant-based is getting to be the norm. See you next time. Bye.